Okay? Now the instruction you had was, or the thing I told you to do, is using x values -2, -1, -1/2, 0, 1/2, 1, and 2. Find f of x for each of those values and graph it. And people did quite well with this, except there was a little confusion. Okay, so what's f of -2? If x is -2, then you replace x by -2, so you're going to have to square -2. Now, I want to write this out carefully. F of -2 equals -2 squared. You got to square whatever x is. And if you square -2, that's -2 times -2, which is 4. And that's the way I've written it here. Get this in your head right now. Should have in algebra, but you know, if you didn't get it right now, f of x is not this. If you write -2 squared by the order of operations, you do the exponent before anything. The exponent applies to the 2, not to the negative. A negative sign is like multiplication by -1. Okay, so you square the 2 and you get 4, and then you put a negative, you get -4. Okay, so if you do that, you're going to get -4, not 4. But the correct result is 4, because if you multiply -2 by -2, you're going to get a positive 4. Anyhow, then squaring -1, you get 1. Squaring -1/2, you get -1/2 times -1/2, which is -1 times -1 over 2 times 2, which is 1/4. Square 0, you get 0, and you can square 1/2, 1, and 2 very easily. When you do that, you get points on the graph. When x is -2, your f of x, which you're going to put on your y-axis, is 4. So -2, 4. So you come up to here and over here, you get this point. -1, 1 is here. -1/2, 1/4 is here. To get 1/4, you subdivide the interval from 0 to 1. Cut that interval in half and you have a half. Cut that in half, you've got a 4th. And you plot the rest of the points and you get your graph. Now, f of x equals 2 to the x. Okay? People had some trouble with this one. Okay? Partly brain rust and partly not completely understanding the substitution. So to emphasize the correct substitution, I asked, what's f of aardvark? Well, if x is aardvark, then x has been replaced by aardvark, and x here has to be replaced by aardvark. That gives you 2 raised to the aardvark, not aardvark raised to the x, because some people wanted to put aardvark here in place of 2. 2 doesn't change. There's nothing you can do to x that's going to change that 2. You change the value of x, you change the value of x. You don't change the value of 2. So make sure you understand that. It's not an uncommon mistake, nothing to be ashamed of. Just get it straight. Try not to make it anymore. Now, we used the values -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. And I recommended that you start from the bottom and work to the top. If x equals 2, then you get 2 to the x, which is 2 to the second. And we know that's 2 squared, 2 times 2, that's 4. And if x is 1, then you're going to get 2 to the 1. 2 to the 1, that's 2. Now, here's where we ran into trouble. That's why I told you to start from the bottom so you get a couple of them right. Only one person in the entire class, almost 20 people, did this right. Okay? Now, I found that actually kind of shocking. Because certainly you've been told many times that any number to the 0 power is 1. There's even a reason for that, which I explained. So people wanted to say 2 to the 0 is 0. Well, you're not thinking, okay? And maybe you're not remembering something that you should have encountered hundreds of times in your algebra, but probably didn't because they put a calculator in your hand. So you didn't have to think about much of anything. And that's, you know, you got to overcome any handicap you've got as a result of that. And you can do it. You know, all you got to do is put the calculator away and start thinking and start constructing things instead of leaning on that crutch. Nobody's going to ask you to multiply 2 3-digit numbers in your head, but you should be able to multiply single-digit numbers and hopefully numbers up to 20 in your head. Okay. So 2 to the 0 is 1. There's a reason for that, but let's move on. At -1, 2 to the -1, well, hopefully you looked at the video on basic fractions. Any number to the -1, or just even laws of exponents, any number to the -1 is 1 over that number to the power 1. That's what a negative power does. Review your laws of exponents if you don't understand that. So you get 1 over 2 to the 1, which is 1/2. X is -2, you get 2 to the -2, which is 1 over 2 squared. And that, of course, comes out 1 over 4. Now you've got these numbers, and you can begin to construct the graph, and you can move on to construct the graphs in the assignment.